Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're getting into the absolute core of how we work. We're taking a hard look at the very engine of how we analyze global markets and process information from the ground up. Okay, let's dive into this, because we are going to completely shatter that traditional, deeply ingrained mindset that demand equals opportunity. As we're going to see over the next few minutes, relying on that illusion, yeah, it's literally one of the most dangerous things you can do in international business.
So when looking at a new market, the traditional reflex is almost always way too simple. It usually goes country plus demand equals opportunity, right? It's just a naive automatic reflex. But our view, well, it demands reality. We don't operate on reflex. Our system forces us to ask a much harder question. Can this demand actually pass through the realities of the physical and financial world? It's not just about demand. It's market demand plus successfully passing through the real-world doors that actually equals an executable business.
Now, you might be wondering, what exactly are these doors? Well, they're the invisible, incredibly unforgiving hurdles of the real world. Think about things like foreign exchange, banking and payments, customs and logistics, government budgets, local operations, security, and exit mechanisms. In our flowing network model, every single one of these is a moving part. They aren't just static roadblocks, They are dynamic gates. And here's the kicker. If just one of these doors gets jammed, your so-called theoretical opportunity instantly transforms into a massive sunk cost. We're talking about a shipping container of rotting fruit stuck at a border, or millions of dollars just frozen indefinitely in a foreign bank.
And this brilliantly illustrates how this perspective totally reshapes how we define the global business landscape. We absolutely do not see the world as a static map of countries dotted with isolated little data points of consumer needs. Instead, we look at it as a dynamic, deeply interconnected flowing network. Funds are flowing, goods are flowing, government policies, massive infrastructure projects, security risks, they are literally all in constant motion. So we are obsessed with the transmission paths between these flows, rather than just staring at isolated data points.
Because we view the world through this lens of continuous flow, our analytical system is designed to relentlessly stress test every single opportunity, right from the very first spark of interest. It triggers this kind of rapid-fire interrogation. And the absolute first question isn't just about volume. It's, is there a real demand here? And much, much more importantly, who is actually paying for it? We absolutely have to know if the payer is a sovereign government, a state-owned enterprise, a private developer, or if it's backed by international agency funds.
But the interrogation doesn't stop there. Not even close. We keep pushing. How is it being paid? Where exactly does that money come from? Does the buyer actually have the foreign exchange capabilities to pay in US dollars? And physically, how do the goods even enter the market? We are constantly tracking the literal transmission of risk and capital. Why? Because a massive, beautiful spreadsheet showing demand has never wired a single dollar into a supplier's bank account.
Finally, the system absolutely demands to know the friction points. How long does customs clearance really take? Who is stuck bearing the crushing cost of port delays? If local security shifts and suddenly alters the transport route, who is covering the insurance in that extra time? And crucially, if things go completely sideways, can we exit? It's only when all of these systemic questions successfully connect and align that an opportunity finally shifts from being a dangerous mirage to a viable, executable operation. Okay, let's move to and see how this builds when we apply this framework directly to reality. Take the Ethiopian construction market, for example. This is a classic, high-volume scenario that consistently trips up countless businesses who rely on that old, traditional mindset. So let's see how our methodology dissects a market that looks absolutely perfect on paper.
Now here is the perfect contrast. On the surface, the illusion is just blindingly positive, right? Ethiopia has massive construction projects, which naturally equals a huge undeniable demand for steel, cement, and heavy equipment. The traditional business mind says, wow, look at all that demand, we absolutely must get in. But we have to consider the hidden structure. That surface demand completely masks a grueling reality. It's actually a highly complex transmission chain filled with operational risks that most businesses completely overlook until their cash is trapped.
Let's just walk right through the actual transmission path, shall we? These are the sequential doors this opportunity actually has to survive to be profitable. Step 1 is the budget release door. Is the government or state-owned enterprise actually releasing the project funds, or are progress payments going to drag on for months? Step 2, the forex door. Even if they have the local currency budget lined up, can the buyer's bank genuinely source the US dollars needed to pay an international supplier? And step 3, the logistics door.
Let's say your goods finally arrive at the Djibouti port. Will customs clearance, reference pricing, and inland transport severely delay getting your delivery to the actual site?
Listen, if just one of these doors jams, the cascading effects are brutal. A single bottleneck creates an immediate, massive domino effect. Port congestion in Djibouti doesn't just stay at the port, it translates into severe delivery delays for the inland factory. Foreign exchange tightening at the central bank, well, that suddenly becomes your payment delay. A government project delay instantly transmits downstream, becoming immense cash flow pressure for you. Essentially, if you aren't mapping this all out beforehand, you, as the supplier, just end up acting as a free financier, practically advancing funds for the buyer.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how quickly that illusion shatters. That raw, intoxicating demand suddenly turns into massive inventory buildup, crippling demurrage fees, those awful daily financial penalties for stranded cargo just sitting at a port, and entirely irreversible sunk costs. High demand without a clear path isn't some gold mine, it's honestly just a massive financial liability. Which brings us to a fascinating, kind of counterintuitive truth about emerging markets. It's something we call the paradox of high demand. The biggest, hottest, and loudest opportunities, they're often the most dangerous traps. Why? Precisely because of the friction they create. It's the classic gold rush rule. The people who get crushed in the stampede far outnumber the ones who actually strike gold. Stronger surface demand means a lot more competitors crowding into the exact same entries. And that leads to tighter foreign exchange, radically worse port congestion, much longer payment cycles, and ultimately highly concentrated risk for absolutely everyone involved.
So, the crucial point is, opportunities are not discovered, they are penetrated. Let's just slow down for a second and really let that sink in. A real, bankable business opportunity isn't just lying on the ground, waiting for you to stumble upon it on some macroeconomic spreadsheet. Not at all. It is something you have to actively, intentionally drive through multiple layers of real-world friction.
So then, what does a genuine, viable opportunity actually look like? Well, it possesses a very specific anatomy. For it to be real, it absolutely must successfully pass through the payment door, meaning can the money actually close the loop? Then, the delivery door. Can the physical goods survive the logistics chain? The compliance door. Is it going to pass customs and local regulations smoothly? The operations door. Can your local teams realistically support it? And finally, the exit door. Can you actually get your capital and your profits out of the country? Success is entirely about navigating these operational doors.
And that is exactly why we define our operating system, not as some simple scoring metric for a country's potential, but as a realistic, incredibly powerful X-ray tool. Our methodology takes scattered, seemingly totally unrelated data. A policy shift over here, a logistics delay over there, a financial bottleneck, a sudden security alert, and it places all of them into a single, cohesive transmission map. We are evaluating your real cash flow and your actual risk exposure from within this hidden operating structure of friction and flows.
We really don't look at the world as a simple list of opportunities just waiting to be picked. We see the thresholds, the friction, and the flows. Which leaves us with a critical, kind of provocative question for you to consider today. If raw demand isn't actually an opportunity, what hidden structures and jammed doors are you currently ignoring in your own business strategy? Take a really hard look at your transmission paths. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, don't just look for demand, look for the doors. Catch you next time.